Hey guys, it's me and my face here again. So I uploaded a video and I'm like, yeah, I'm back, let's go. And then, I very clearly wasn't. Because I'm gonna be real with you guys, burnout is a thing. It wasn't really like a proper burnout. It wasn't like a no, I've been trying too hard. Because really it's just been a slap the camera on for 15 minutes, boom, wham, bam, done. But it's more so been a lack of ideas. It's been like a really difficult few months of what the heck do I do now that I have the power, the control. And I've realized that I don't really want to do like series. You know what I mean? I just kind of want to do whatever comes to my head. So I hope that's okay with you guys, but I'm probably not going to continue a lot of the series that I have been doing or start up many new ones because that's just simply not something that I think I want to do. I feel like it restricts me, you know what I mean? And maybe I'll do short series, so like 2 or 3 episodes of a thing. I have a bigger project on the way that should be cool that I have been working on, but I figured maybe I should do a video or something. So I'm doing one that's really out of the box and weird, and it's basically Skyrim. What Skyrim does right and how we can incorporate that into our D&D and TTRPG experiences, because Skyrim is a great example of a modern day role-playing game that gets a lot of stuff right. There's other games that have similar examples, Fallout 4 being good for that as well. Bethesda seem to have the RPG game mostly down, but there's also other ones like, The Witcher, that's a popular one that's going around. And I specifically wanted to talk about Skyrim because it's the one that I have the most experience with. I've technically completed it. Like, completing Skyrim isn't exactly completing Skyrim, because once you've done the main story, there's also 20 gajillion others that you can also do. So that's basically what I'm going to be talking about. Skyrim, what it does right, what we can use it for when we're planning, creating storylines, moments, areas, building on stuff in our D&D games. And the first thing is that there is no one-sided random NPC. There are kind of, but usually you're fighting them if they're that one-dimensional, and they are more so just used as a way of an encounter and giving a player a bit of a fight. So that would be in the form of like the bandits or whatever, perhaps. But mostly, if you enter a place, there's going to be a load of NPCs, all with their own names, a few quotes, and it's not exactly too much. Most of them are going to have around 5 to 10 voice lines if you're lucky. Some on the lower end of about 2 or 3. Some will only have like a few recurring ones and not actually interact with you, but they're still important because they kind of flesh out the area. You've got the classic, Nazim asking if you go to the Cloud District very often. Some other person in the town calls Nazim a bastard. There's even a quest that you can get at some point where you just have to beat up Nazim, and it's like that one random guy who just disses you and walks off. Turns out involved a little bit in the town, and everyone is in some way. There's like one woman who eventually becomes like the new tavern owner or something. There's another that you can help with like a quest that helps start up a business or whatever, and that's all in just the first place that you go to. And it's all really interesting stuff because even though they're pretty one-dimensional in terms of their character, they usually have a goal, maybe. Sometimes they don't, and they have like a personality trait, and even then they might not. They just might be a filler to fill the void, and that's perfectly fine. And I think you can kind of take that into account when coming up with your own NPCs for your own role-playing games, in terms of all of them have a small personality, perhaps quirk, or they are invested somewhat in the area. And another thing to note is the amount of them. Usually there's no random filler ones that you see 2 to 3 times every time you go through the game. It's like, oh look, it's that model again. They're all unique and stuff like that, except for the soldiers. And even if it might feel a bit weird, have a place that's about... Make locations smaller, you know what I mean? Because it condenses all of that fun and all of the exploration down to about 20-30 buildings, 20-30 NPCs, and you don't even have to write any of it down. You can just think it in your head and just know that it's all pretty small, so that it actually helps with the scale in your mind and always helps you make something creative, which is what Skyrim does. Every building in Skyrim has a meaning. You can break into them, you can do whatever, and it's the same with the characters there as well. They're all populating the area, and there aren't that many of them in each place, but each of them are signature, and I feel like that's something you can take in. Maybe sometimes less is more, you know what I mean? Another thing is random encounters, which Skyrim has definitely taken on board. With I had downloaded like a mod at some point that made them a lot more likely to happen because I just love them so much, and they can come in the form of all sorts of things, and most of them you don't even have to fight. It's passing by little groups, perhaps a trading caravan, perhaps like a prison escort or something. And you can choose to do any number of things with that prison escort, for example. Ignore it, talk to the guards and be like, okay, you do your business. Free the prisoner, kill the guards, kill the prisoner. I don't know why you do that. But you can really just do anything, and that's kind of how most random encounters I think should happen. Sure, there can be the filler, a brown bear jumps out of a bush to attack you, and you fight it and you kill it, cool. And you maybe have a lair to find that it once had. But other than that, it can be just that. But most of the time, I think there should be an element of depth. Perhaps you come across an encounter that's already happened, and there's like an entire party that has been slaughtered, and there's just one guy running away from a group of bandits or whatever. And it's up to you to do whatever you want with that. Maybe kill the bandits and the guys so you get all the loot, or kill the bandits and save the guys so that you can help them, or whatever. And I think that's how a lot of random encounters should go, and that's how Skyrim kind of does it. Now granted, it only has about 100 to 150, so if you've played the game 2 or 3 times, you're going to see them recur a bit. And yeah, but other than that, they are a great example. And another thing is that the other type of encounter in Skyrim are set locations, because it's a open world game. There's going to be a lot of locations around and stuff, and some of them are copy and paste. So for example, there are like 5 or 6 different pretty damn similar like places where giants live and stuff, and you can fight them and they're mammoths or whatever and probably die. But there are also other places. So for example, if you're just walking around for no reason, boom, there's a cave right there, go in, oh, it's a small dungeon. And those like small ones, 6 or 7 rooms at best, and they can fill out a good 20-30 minutes of your gameplay experience if you take the proper time to explore them, look at the environment and stuff, because each of them have something slightly unique about them, but a lot of them are very copy and pasty, which is absolutely fine if it's that's kind of the tone of your world or the area that the party are exploring. But I think some of the set locations that you can just kind of stumble upon are good. And if you want, you can map them out on a map, or you can simply say, group them in with the random encounters and just be like, some of the random encounters lead to small dungeons, and you don't even have to write the dungeons out. Improvise them, sketch them as you go along. Whatever, it's really up to you. But again, Skyrim does good on that. Another thing that I think is good that gets the player going is that most quest givers aren't picky. Usually there aren't requirements to get like a quest or whatever. You just need to talk to the right people or have the right people come to you, and that can translate well over to a D&D game, for example, because you know you want your players to have quests and go on adventures and stuff, right? That's why you're playing. So if the quest givers aren't that picky and they're pretty lenient and they're like pretty chill and everything, then yeah, go for it. An example is that in my current Sunday game, the party had saved like an instructor in a university's daughter, long story, and he had immediately signed them all up for the university without a second thought. And that might seem a bit weird, but it's like, now they're a part of a university and they're field researchers helping to uncover religious secrets and stuff, and all that came from like a small thing and a very, very over-the-top generous act. And that's given them a bunch of adventures. Something else is that absolutely everything can be looted. Once you kill it, there is something on it, and if there isn't, it's usually a skeleton or something, which makes sense. But Skyrim considers that players are going to want to loot everything and anything that they come across, and at some point in the game they're going to just start leaving stuff if it's not significant, you know, the occasional component to herbalism or whatever that they don't need, but at the start they're going to be taking almost everything that's around them. And it's the same with the players. If they're level 1, 2 or 3, they're probably not going to be rolling in that much money, and if they beat a bunch of bandits, they're going to want to know, okay, how much money did these guys have, if any, on them? And the easy approach is to say, oh, they didn't have any, but the cool approach is to say that they did have some, and maybe one of them even had a pouch containing a gemstone. I don't know, that just adds a lot cooler elements to it and makes it makes NPCs a little more deep than I am bandit with sword here to stab you. But granted, you learn that after the fact of either killing or like capturing them, but still. So something else in terms of its gameplay mechanics in combat is that big bad guys are usually still pretty quick to kill, but have many, many more tools to kill you, whether that come in the form of summoning undead or just going absolutely nuts on a fool with like 2 weapons or whatever. Usually the bosses of the game are maybe have not even double the hit points of regular like mini bosses, which is cool. It would take them maybe 15-20 seconds of solid just hitting them to get them down, but usually with those bosses, if you've been doing that for 5 seconds, you're dead, and therefore that causes creative problem solving. They can heal and stuff, so even though they don't have that much health, there's a lot of tools for them to get that back and also push you back so they're on the offensive and you don't just get to kill them in 10 seconds. And that can translate over to D&D. I'm starting to repeat myself here, but you get the message. So there's enchanting, crafting, and herbalism mechanics, which you do not need to make. Okay, herbalism kits are very basic. I can make a potion of healing or an antitoxin. Crafting is very basic. There's a downtime activity for it. And enchanting isn't really a thing that players can exactly do, long term even, but you can kind of bunch that in with magic, crafting or whatever. But I think that laying hooks for like, here's a recipe, here's the materials needed, and you can straight up tell them, this is moonstone, this can be used to make Moontouch scimitar or whatever, I don't know. That makes players want to make it, and then once they've made it, it's like, wow, this is mine, I made it. Therefore, they're going to like it a lot more, and they're going to feel a bond to this weapon, and it will also enhance your story because they made that because you gave it to them, and then they chose to put it together or whatever. And I think that games that let you make your own stuff makes you more attached to said stuff, and when you lose it, you're more pissed at the DM and want to stab them in the face. Ancient evils and new evils. There's plenty of different bad guys. Some of them are modern, so like, you know, the classic bandits and giants that make things rough. But then there's also, you know, the dragons and the weird, I don't know, like demon people. What are they called? I don't know. Molog. I don't care either. But yeah, they're older evils that are slightly more late game threats for the player to deal with and such, and I think that adds a lot more to the world when you know that these ancient histories and stuff are coming back and making things awful, and it also meshes well with the new ones to make the world still feel like its own form of modern, if you will. And then finally, there is always something for the player to solve, and if there isn't, the game makes one. A random letter from someone to go somewhere else and solve their problem. The player simply walking around and boom, there's a random encounter with a letter and like there's been a hit placed on you or something. If the player doesn't have like 10 or 12 quests going on at the same time, they are not playing Skyrim. And sure, that can sound like slightly decision paralysis-y for like a player of a game or a TTRPG game or whatever, but ultimately it always gives them something to do, and the way that you can do it is pretty, like, you don't always have to make it sound super urgent. You can give the players time to have their own downtime, knowing that there's a problem slowly brewing that they can leave for a bit while they take care of their own stuff. Where, you know, I want 2 weeks of downtime because I want to take a bunch of time to use all the money I got to learn a bunch of spells and stuff like that. And wording your quests in a way that makes it sound like they can do that is always a great idea, in my opinion, unless there is a direct narrative plot hole that you want to, not plot hole, but plot element that you want to hammer into the players and stuff like that. But I think there should always be a problem for the players to solve, whether it's now or later. If it's just in the back of their mind, it should always be there. I'm out of breath because I'm trying to make this easy on myself and not edit these videos and just publish them when I want to, and therefore I had to really speed up a lot of my speech and try not to leave too many pauses. So I hope that kind of worked out for you guys. If you enjoyed the stuff, make sure that you subscribe and like and whatever, and if you like this sort of video, which is probably the most disconnected from D&D the channel has ever been, let me know. It's very possible that I might branch out and start making non-TTRPG content. There's some other stuff that I want to talk about. There's a few RPG systems that are really interesting to me and I want to make videos on and stuff. And there are also, I've been getting back into a few old hobbies and learning some new stuff. I've been reading and all that, and maybe I want to talk about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, thank you for watching. See ya. I'm going to manually press the stop recording button now. Whoa.